Have you witnessed pure evil? Alan Rudolph, the vice president of research at Colorado State University. My family actually lived near him, and he complained constantly about our German Shepherd barking at night. I wasn't living at home at the time, but helped my dad work hard to try different things and get the barking to stop. I am saying this honestly, he didn't bark much. If he made any noise at all, Alan would call animal control immediately. Eventually we did get him to never bark at all pretty much. I can't understand why he did this except that he just hated our dog. Well then one day he happened to be walking by. He walked his dog near where our German Shepherd was outside. Our pup got excited and approached his dog, a little quickly but whatever. He immediately shrieked, even though the dog was barely touching him. When I saw how freaked out he was, I ran over and tackled my family's dog and pinned him down. Again, this was easy because he was not acting aggressive, just overexcited. Alan knew this, he must have. He stood there and ranted about how mad he was and how he was going to get our dog removed, while standing over me, which was interesting considering he was so frightened of the dog but was still comfortable standing over me, with the terrifying dog right there. Finally he started walking away, acting extremely dramatic. At one point, when he and his dog were a good distance away from us, I saw him get on the ground on his own holding his head, as a way to make a big display out of how upset he was. Later he spammed us with voicemails, stating that the German Shepherd violently attacked him, and that he was going to have him removed and euthanized. He also mentioned the barking multiple times, one after the other. We all knew he was lying, but we were still worried. This man was once a member of the senior executive service, has had multiple ethical complaints and legal issues over the years. He's been accused of bribery and corruption and even animal abuse before. Each time he gets off because his wife is an attorney and they have money. It was bad enough that there are entire articles online questioning Colorado State's decision to hire him when he still had an ongoing FBI investigation involving him hiring people from his previous job and all the implications that come with that. We tried to smooth things over by going to the house and apologizing. He wasn't home but his wife was. He had apparently told her that he had been knocked down by our dog, which was a lie. He got on the ground himself. She basically said whatever you guys are done for because I am an attorney. She even said something like, well maybe you shouldn't have this dog, even if the barking has gotten better. Like she literally brought the barking up out of nowhere and even admitted it was better without us asking. Over the next few days he called my dad constantly, called the HOA and animal control constantly as well. He repeatedly said he didn't want the dog somewhere else, he wanted him dead. He also told people that our dog had a record with animal control. The only record he had was the barking complaints that Alan Rudolph himself made. We got scared and rehomed the dog to keep him safe before animal control got involved. We made sure to not tell Alan or anyone where he is. A week or so later, the animal control agent called the house, and I and a few others who knew the situation talked to her. She said that she knew he was being overdramatic, and that there was no way our dog was getting removed as the situation didn't call for that, but it was too late as we already did it out of fear. She also said that Alan was overdramatic, and even said she had to choose her words carefully, but she knew he was a bit off, and didn't say, but almost implied that this wasn't the first time he had done this with someone's dog. Maybe it was good we rehomed the dog, even though I miss him. If we hadn't I wouldn't put it past Alan Rudolph to have tried to poison him or something. Cult survivors, what is your story? There was your typical charismatic leader who claimed to have supernatural powers and promised us gifts in the afterlife. I don't know what exactly got me into the cult. Times were different back then and the idea didn't seem so crazy. A much larger part of it was that there were always a ton of super attractive girls around. And at that point in my life, I didn't have much to hold on to, and he gave me something to believe in. It might have been a load of crap, but at that point in my life, it gave me a sense of purpose I had always been looking for. As the cult grew larger, we started to attract the attention of local law enforcement and politicians. They were weary of the power he was amassing in town and they were looking for a way to bring him down. The group had gone into town to watch our leader give a sermon in the main marketplace. His sermons often got angry, but today was different. Today, he was violent and outraged. He spewed venomous rants about the evils of consumerism and the perversion of faith in society. The sermon reached a fevered pitch and the crowd erupted. They began to riot. They burned cars, looted stores, and just caused general destruction. The police showed up and arrested everyone on the scene. I got caught along with about a dozen or so other people, but our leader escaped the scene before the cops arrived. The police knew he was there and they wanted to bust him for it. Bad. They tried to get the followers they captured to testify that he had started the riots, but no one would admit he had been there. Well, almost no one. You see, I had a weakness. My mother. She was up to her eyes in debt. She was constantly struggling to make her mortgage payments. My dad had died recently and she barely had the strength to go out and go shopping for herself, let alone get a job at her age. They found my weakness. They told me if I didn't testify, I would be in jail for 5 to 10 years. That was 5 to 10 years my mom would go without any help. She would have to sell her house. The house my grandfather built. The house she was married in. The house she raised her kids in. I couldn't do that to my mother. They told me if I helped them, they would arrange for a reward if I gave up his whereabouts. So I agreed to testify. Now, they didn't know where he had been hiding, and I didn't either. But once they let me out, I would be able to find him again, and I could lead the police to him. But if I was the only one released, it would look suspicious, so they released everybody. Soon, We found his new hiding place and I relayed the address to the cops. The next few hours while I waited for the police to show up were the most nerve-wracking moments of my life. They bust down the doors while we were all sitting down to dinner. In the middle of our meal they kicked down the doors in SWAT gear and drag our leader out. The guilt must have shone on my face like a neon light, because as they dragged him out he looked at me and he knew. It was one of the worst moments of my life. I was so burdened by the guilt I entered into a depression. Every single person I knew hated me. I had never been so alone in my life. I tried to make things right, but it was too late. The judge was so corrupt that he ended up getting the death penalty for some bullcrap charges the cops made up. Watching him sit on the chair was painful. Cops, what is the most what the FCK happened here moment you've experienced? My firefighter uncle's story. His truck was sent on a call for an unknown disturbance, which basically means anything in the world. They get sent an address and that's pretty much it. Truck drives down the street looking for this address and they get to the end and all they can see is an abandoned lot with nothing but bushes. Even though they can't see anyone they have to get out and investigate, so my uncle and a couple of the guys get out of the truck and start walking around with the usual, fire department, call out. They didn't hear anything for a while and were about to pack it in as another pointless prank call when my uncle walked past a bush and heard rustling. He looks over and sees a man standing kind of awkwardly behind a bush. Hey Mr. Fireman, did you call 911? Uncle, yes sir. My uncle steps a bit closer and realizes how the man is buck-ass naked and standing at a strange angle. He motions to another firefighter that he found the caller and goes behind the bush to begin assessing. He is a firefighter/paramedic. That's when he realizes that the man has, what he refers to, a effing bunny tail on his butt. Of course they try to get the man to explain why he had called in distress and what was going on. After a bit of avoidance the man finally admits that he had taken a toilet brush cleaner and shoved the handle up his bum. Honestly no idea why anyone would think this is a good idea generally. Being the enlightened individual that he is, he chose one with a hook on the end, to hang up in a bathroom. What my uncle and the other firefighters assumed was that the hook had gotten stuck on something internally because they couldn't pull it out and it caused the man significant discomfort when they tried. My uncle left the man with another firefighter, getting his information, and went back to the truck to call for an ambulance. Of course at this point he always mentions that he walked around the truck to see the rest of the company trying to silently die of laughter out of view of the bushes. When the ambulance arrives my uncle meets them with a grin on his face and tells them to brace themselves before walking them over to the bushes. They assess the man and conclude that there is no way for them to remove the toilet brush in the field and that they have to admit him to the hospital for surgery. The only problem was that they couldn't figure out how to get him into the gurney without causing him to move in a way that caused him more pain. They end up throwing a blanket over him and the firefighters help maneuver him into a sort of downward dog/mountain position with his bum in the air to keep the toilet brush at the right angle. At that point my uncle decided that the fire department was done with the call and the paramedics could handle it from there and loaded up the company onto the truck. As they began to drive away he said they were loading this guy into the rig as we drove off and the last I saw of him was that blanket falling off and that damn bunny tail of his sticking straight up in the air.